Hey you guys, I am back with another video, and today I decided I'm just gonna make a short video. I'm gonna do some short videos about like couples, so I'm not gonna do like long videos because I just cannot do long videos. But today I'm gonna be making a video about Michelle and David and my honest opinions about them. I honestly just have like a lot to say about this couple. I did do a live, but it just didn't turn out that well at first. I did an original live, and it was like about an hour long, and it was talking about like all like the whole Married at First Sight episode I was going to be recapping. But like shortly when I posted it, YouTube took it right down because they said like I was like violating community guidelines. And I think what they meant by that was that like I was sharing my screen to like platforms, like to network platforms like Lifetime, Netflix, Hulu, and Peacock. And I think YouTube could copyright you for that. So I think I got copyrighted on like one of my live streams, and so they took it down. So I made another live stream, but I just could not like focus when it came to like talking about all the couples and like doing a whole long video dedicated to all the couples all over again. So like, you know what, why don't I just do a quick short video on the most interesting couple to me during this season, and let me just go from there. Let me just break down Michelle and David's history. Then like next video, I'm gonna break down Carla and John, and then I'm gonna also break down like Ike and Emnen, that black couple. And then I think maybe like later episodes I may address other couples. It's just so much that's happening this season where I'm just trying to see like which couples do I address first. I like to address a couple by couple, and I don't really like to address, too many things at once. So I was just like, you know what, let me just address this couple. With the whole like Michelle and David situation, honestly, when it comes to Michelle and David, I just think that like Michelle and David have completely different lives, and Michelle is just one of those people who just cannot stand certain people, and one of those people is David. I think David is trying but so hard to be nice to Michelle, and Michelle just can't seem to just give back to David when it comes to like being respectful. I honestly just think that David and Michelle are an incompatible couple, and I'm just like, why did they partner up, Michelle and David, if they have different living situations? And I was watching a podcast, and I believe like one of the therapists for Married at First Sight was on that podcast, and they were like, we don't match couples based on their similarities. We match couples based on like how much they'll be compatible over like differences and like just love. And I just kind of have to disagree with that, because I'm just like, I feel like that Married at First Sight should match couples with like a little bit of similarities, especially when it comes on like main things. I'd say like make sure like these couples are going to be financially compatible. They're going to be compatible when it comes to living situations. They are both like, clean and organized and stuff like that. Like, certain things like that, like when it comes to like, having a partner. And so I think like that's why in this generation, like people prefer to live alone more. And honestly, like what was very interesting to me was that how like Michelle went from like getting along to like starting to get along with David, and then literally when they were about to go pack to leave Mexico, Michelle was just like, oh, I can't sleep in the same bed as you when we move back in to Chicago and have our shared apartment. Michelle was like, oh, I can't sleep. I still don't want to sleep in the same bed with you. And then Michelle in the after party says like, you know what? We've been sleeping on the same bed together in Mexico. So I was just like, what? It doesn't make sense for us to sleep in the same bed when we move into the apartment. And for me, I'm just like, so you didn't spend enough days sleeping without him, and you guys were just starting to get back along together. And Michelle decides that she does not want to sleep with David. To me, it's just very sketchy, because it's just like Michelle, you spent so many days sleeping on the bed by yourself without David, and you had David sleeping on the couch for so many days, even sleeping outside at one point in Mexico, and then now still you cannot sleep with this man. And it's just like, okay, so now you're gonna just take the bed? Like, is that what it is? And so I think Michelle is just really selfish in the situation, because even with the whole even when everyone was getting ready to go to the planes and take the coach bus, Michelle wasn't even sitting next to David. Michelle like was sitting behind David, and David was like opening the camera and being like, oh, Michelle is just right there sitting behind me. And so I just think that like Michelle just genuinely does not love David, and David has to run, but David is still entertaining it. And David honestly reminds me of Nick, because it's just like Nick did the same thing with Hannah. Hannah was abusing Nick, and Nick was just staying there for the cameras. And then you had Hannah outing Nick and being like, on the cameras, Nick would act like this good rookie boy, but then off the cameras, he'd be like, on the cameras, Nick would be like, oh, Hannah, you're so nice, you're so adorable, you're so cute, whatever. But then off the cameras, like, Nick would have this big ego, and I think it's David doing the same thing. And it's just like Michelle can't only be disrupted by like David's living situation, but then in the trailers, I think what's going to take Michelle off is, I remember on the trailers, I was seeing like, David was showing his apartment to Michelle, and then Michelle was crying and be like, I knew it. And Michelle was looking at David's place, and she was like, it's giving like a 20-year-old lives here. It's giving like 20-year-old. And then Michelle was like, I do not like his living situation. And I think in the previews, I see a little bit of David's like apartment with like that he's in with his parents, and that apartment does not look nice at all. Like, that apartment looks very junky. Like, that apartment does just not look luxurious at all. And I think Michelle wants a luxury living lifestyle, and David just wants a comfortable living lifestyle. And I think that's where there's a disconnect. And I think Michelle, like, she shouldn't be crying to the therapist, because it's just like, if Michelle sees like David's situation is not up to hers, like, I think David is just a little bit too immature for Michelle as well. And I think I give Michelle a little bit of grace, because in that preview, when I saw David's apartment, I was kind of just like, okay, it wasn't giving what David was saying on the episode. I think Nick did the same thing in Love is Blind this current season, where Nick was like, oh, like, I have like a pool downstairs in my parents' basement, I have this in my parents' basement. And then when Hannah sees Nick's basement where his parents is at, Hannah's just like, oh, I thought it would be nice, like, you told me something else. And so I think Michelle on Married at First Sight was promised this golden guy, and she didn't get it. Just like on Love is Blind, Hannah was promised this football player by Nick lying in the pods, and she didn't get it. And I think, like, when it comes to these two women, they are expecting more from their man. And I think Michelle is just expecting more from David, and David just doesn't check all the boxes. And I think a man who lives with his parents in general just doesn't check the boxes for a woman. It's just too immature for women. I think a lot of men who have these type of situations, who are not up to par, or like who don't feel confident in themselves, they tend to lie to women and be like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm big. But then overall, it just turns out that like they are just nothing. Like, they bring nothing to the table. I think that David, he doesn't really bring a lot to the table, because David also, he is working 2 jobs. It doesn't seem like that David has one stable job. And I think I'm just like, when will David ever see Michelle? Like, when will David ever see Michelle? Like, to me, it's just like, when is David ever gonna see Michelle in the apartment? Like, I just don't get it. I just can't fathom it. I'm trying to see, like, okay, when is this man actually gonna see Michelle? And it just seems to me as just that, as though like these two partners, they just have differences, and David is trying so hard to communicate with Michelle, but Michelle is not doing the justice by saying, you know what, hey, look, I cannot stay here longer with this man. I gotta leave. And I think David really should just leave Michelle. Like, I think David is kind of like it's bad on David's part, because it's just like David is literally staying with like Michelle. Like, David is literally staying with, like, David is not making the more responsible decision to be like, you know what, I think we're just incompatible and I don't want to waste your time. And Nick did the same thing. Nick let Hannah like tell him on. Nick let Hannah control her when it came to taking out the trash, cleaning the apartment, having responsibility in his life, being more mature. And I think David is doing the same thing. David is letting Michelle drag him on by Michelle saying like, oh, are you going to be ready to move out your parents' house? Are you going to be ready to do this? It's like both of these two men just let these women control them. Like Nick and David, when it comes to like Love is Blind and Married at First Sight. Like, this is a similar situation as like Love is Blind with Hannah and Nick. And I think with Michelle and David, like, Michelle is just so turned off by the fact that like David lives in his parents' basement. And when I saw David's basement, like in the preview, I was just like, I don't know if Michelle is gonna really like that. To me, I can't really defend any of these couples. Like, I can't defend Michelle or David. Like, I can't defend any of them, because it's just like, when you're on a marriage show, you kind of want to have your own identity of like who you are, and I think that helps with by like living on your own. But then I also get where David is coming from, where he's just like, you know what, I am still independent, like back off. And I think that Michelle is just not working with David at all. David is trying to so hard to work with Michelle, and David's, and like, I think even Latarius was saying that on the after party. He was like, yeah, Michelle, like, you know, David is trying so hard to talk to you, but like, you just kind of just like let go. And for me, that's just hurtful, because it's just like, David is like so nice to you, Michelle. And it's like, David, like, why are you still accepting this? Like, why are you in the same spot as Michelle? Like, why are you in the same position as Michelle? Like, to me, it's just very awkward. It's really awkward for me. And I'm just like, I just can't fathom that. Like, y'all just need to break up. Both of y'all just need to break up. For me, it's just like, y'all need to go break up. Y'all need to hit the exit stage and just leave. Like, just leave each other alone at this point. Like, y'all are not for each other at all. Y'all are not giving each other company and space one bit. Y'all only got along for one bit in Mexico. And also, Michelle was even something like, you know what, I don't want to be a negative Nancy and stuff like that. I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but I feel like I am. I'm too hard on myself. Yeah, you are. I think Michelle has to like kind of like chill back a little bit. And like, Michelle needs to learn, like, it's okay if I have a divorce at the end of this. Because a lot of couples, I don't know, Michelle, like, did you not watch the show? Like, a lot of couples, they get divorces they get divorces either after or during the show. So it's like, Michelle, like, you could always, I mean, I know divorces, it's like really hard, like for divorces and stuff like that. Like, divorces are really challenging, but it's like, after that divorce, like, you could go move on and like find somebody else. And like, yeah, okay, you might have a second husband, but it's like, at the end of the day, like, you were in an experiment, and it's like, you don't have to have it work out with your partner. Like, whatever was on paper, like, wasn't really what you wanted. And so I think for Michelle, like, either she needs to call it quits, or David just needs to call it quits. Like, I just do not see like Michelle and David just working out at all. I don't see them working out as a couple at all, like, in the slightest. I don't see them working out in the slightest. And so I'm just like, David has a lot of growing to do, and I think Michelle just has a lot of needs to learn a lot of patience. I think Michelle needs to learn some patience when it comes to like managing guys and like working with men who have so many flaws. I'm just like, for me who could take a guy with flaws, I'm like, I cannot see why Michelle is turned off by that one bit. And Michelle won't even know more what's like on the inside about David. Like, I don't think David has even gotten a chance to be vulnerable to Michelle yet. And I think for Michelle, she hasn't gotten a chance to be vulnerable as well. I think she was maybe a little bit vulnerable when she was talking about her being independent. And even when you had Michelle's family talking to David, it was almost as if like Michelle's family was super hard on David. I think that in the future, again, I think Michelle's family might be hard on David if they even stay married, because it's just like, Michelle's family wants a guy, I think, who has his own life, who's independent. And Michelle living with like a single mom, and like, you know, being in a single parent household. I think that's why Michelle is so independent, and she wants a guy just like that. And I think David, he didn't have that. He had two parents coddling him. So it's like, they can't really relate on that. I think that just was really just turned Michelle off traumatically as well, because I think Michelle probably could see like her going through a lot when it came to living in a single parent household, and her her mom not having a lot in like, when it came to like her childhood, and you know, Michelle having to fend for herself during her childhood. And you have David, I think maybe Michelle might hold some resentment until Michelle sees that apartment that David has. Michelle, like the same thing what Hannah did, how Hannah held resentment towards Nick when Nick had his own place, and Hannah was like, but Hannah, Nick, you're 28 and you could only pay your phone bill and your parents pay everything else for you. I think Michelle has the same resentment as she had with Nick. I think Michelle, she's like, oh my God, Nick. Oh my, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Love is Blind now. But Michelle was like, oh my God, David had all this help from his parents, and me, I had to fend for myself. I had to go off on the streets and fend for myself, do everything myself. I think maybe Michelle might be a little bit of jealous that like David got the support from his parents, probably had like a financial leg up in life, and is now probably be able to like, but I'm like, then David, how come you have 2 jobs, you work 2 shifts? It just doesn't make sense to me. Michelle and David just don't make sense to me. And I want to find out what happens next episode with Michelle and David. I'm done with this video. I'm going to close off of here. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I will see you on my next video. Bye bye. Toodles.